I think there's no more urgent goaltending situation in the NHL than the Colorado Avalanche.
John Gibson, Mackenzie Blackwood. Is there someone out there who you look at and be like, that's the guy, go get him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Avs can afford John Gibson, so I think you could probably cross him off the list. Mackenzie Blackwood has played pretty well, and he's someone that we heard Carter Hutton talk about yesterday. Really needs to see a ton of rubber. He could definitely see that in Colorado. Look, I think there's a ton of different options. Why not go get Dan Vladar from the Calgary Flames? He's been excellent so far. He's on our trade targets board. The Flames would be just as happy to go with Cooley as the backup to Dustin Wolf for the remainder of this year. Second round pick. If you are Chris McFarland, that's what it's going to cost to get Dan Vladar out of Calgary.
But for Nashville, Frank, I mean, is this the start of a big sell-off? They lost again last night, 3 wins in their last 10. They're 7-12-3 on the year. Is this just the beginning, or is this maybe them trying to jolt the team a little bit?
No, I think this has more to do with Phil Tomasino being a guy that was clearly a square peg in a round hole, needed a fresh start, and the Preds figured, hey, let's get something instead of putting him on waivers and potentially losing him for nothing. So that was part of the equation. I don't view it as connected to anything else. However, if Barry Trotz is going to step up here over the next, number of days or weeks, it, in my view, isn't going to be to sell off. I'd be surprised if that's the case. I think the Nashville Predators are in the market to try and boost this team and fix some of what ails them, particularly down the middle at the center position. It's difficult to do at this exact moment in time, given the lack of centers available. But I mean, just look at this depth chart right now. It's Juuso Parssinen has played in the center role. Fedor Svechkov is a call-up and a highly thought-of prospect for the Preds. He's being given an audition. They're trying to find solutions to fix this team down the middle. But Ryan O'Reilly is a great player. But on a true Stanley Cup contending team, Ryan O'Reilly at this point in time is a 3C. So they've got to somehow find a way to balance out the center and wings. And Barry Trotz has been examining the market. We reported on that a few weeks ago, but it's not going to be to sell off. They're pot committed with the way this team's cap is structured.
Well, on that note, let's talk about one of the defensemen that is on the market and could be on the move soon. Frank, how close are we to a resolution in the David Jiricek situation?
Oh, I think relatively close is what I would call it. I think there was certainly an increased attention paid to David Jiricek yesterday in front offices based on the ones that I corresponded with. The best way I can frame up this situation right now is that I believe Columbus Blue Jackets GM Don Waddell has 5 to 6 concrete offers on the table that he's evaluating. I think they were relatively close to a deal at some point over the weekend. I think that they had made significant progress on Monday to the point where some thought a deal might get done or might have been nearing the finish line. But I know that with a young player of this stature, Don Waddell and his staff want to make sure that they're not leaving any stones unturned around the league. And it's been an interesting process because there's a number of teams that have wanted to get in the mix that, frankly, either I'm told haven't received a call back or have been politely, just told, hey, we don't think that this is a fit. We don't see you having the pieces that we're looking for. And so what is it exactly that the Columbus Blue Jackets are looking for? It's a player of similar stature, a young top end pick or prospect, or potentially a package of players that the Columbus Blue Jackets and their fan base can get excited about. We're talking about the number 6 overall pick from just 2 years ago. David Jiricek turns 21 soon. Right now, it certainly seems like a matter of when and not if Jiricek is going to be on the move, but what are the teams that we're talking about that have been in the mix over the last number of days? There seems to be lots of thought that the Minnesota Wild are one of the front runners for Jiricek at this point. Not entirely sure what that package would look like. I think the Philadelphia Flyers have been involved. I think at varying points, The Pittsburgh Penguins have as well. Kyle Dubas, I believe, traveled to go see David Jiricek play on Sunday. Those are the sort of three teams that I would circle around, but I don't think you can count out the San Jose Sharks or potentially the Buffalo Sabres. I think there's been a whole group of teams that have been right there in the mix.
And we'll see if we get a resolution sooner rather than later on that. Before we get to our big segment today and our pal Rob Rossi, a little smoke, fire, or false alarm for you, Frank, on a couple of situations around the league, starting with the New York Rangers. Some talk that they may be looking or willing to really shake up that roster. Smoke or fire? Is this legit trade talk, or is this maybe a GM trying to just throw a little grenade into the room and say, hey, wake up, boys?
I think that this is more smoke than fire. Look, I don't doubt for 1 second that the Rangers are willing and or intrigued about the possibility of giving this team a jolt. I don't think there's any messaging involved here because I don't believe that this information has emanated from the New York Rangers specifically. I think this comes from other teams that Chris Drury's had dialogue with. So the fact that he's talked to others would indicate that there is certainly some validity to it. I think when you look at some of the players that have been mentioned, Jacob Trouba, Chris Kreider, like these are still really impactful pieces. And I know that a lot of Ranger fans, including our pal Johnny Lazarus, would seem to indicate that the sky is falling. If you didn't catch Johnny's sort of late night dark video that he posted last night, basically sobbing about the current state of the Rangers. Look, I get why people are frustrated, but let's think big picture here. They're 12-7-1. They've been one of the best teams in the league the last few years. They've got arguably the best goalie in the game. And yes, he needs a new contract. And yes, Artemi Panarin is next year entering the final year of his deal and potential to sign an extension this summer. These are big, significant changes that we're talking about. And I think that is there interest in Trouba and Kreider? For sure there would be. But I sense maybe we're talking about one player that could be on the move here, not a wholesale change of core, because I also just don't know how realistic that is. They're committed to a lot of these guys.
The last one I got for you before we get to our big segment, Artem Zub goes out for the Senators, and all of a sudden there's some talk that Ottawa may be looking for a defenseman. Smoke, fire, false alarm?
No, I think there's fire there, but it's not only on a defenseman. I mentioned on the DFO rundown yesterday with Jason Greger that the Sens are also looking to shake up their forward group as well in a potential forward swap. I think one of the teams that they've been in dialogue with has been the Philadelphia Flyers. I mentioned that look, there's a bunch of guys that I think are up for a change of scenery from the Flyers. I think Morgan Frost, Bobby Brink, Joel Farabee, to a lesser extent, Tyson Forster. They're all guys that you could see on the move at some point in time. And I think the Sens going back, the other direction, one of the big names that had been talked about was Josh Norris. Now, I don't think the Flyers have a ton of interest in Josh Norris. I think that contract with the term and also his injury history has been tough. But the point being, I think the Sens are open and willing to do some different things. And sending out one of those guys that has some security could potentially be that shot across the bow that this team might need.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.